bring it this side. Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're going to come after.
Yes, Board Chair. Good morning and welcome to the report on the reconstruction of the railway lines and the recovery of the Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa. My name is Mbalula PRASA and I'll be chairing this morning's press briefing. I'm the spokesperson to the Minister of Transport, Mr. Mbalula. Welcome to the Minister of Transport, the team from the department, the executive from PRASA, as well as the board members of PRASA. I will now, without wasting time this morning, hand over to the Minister to deliver his statement on the reconstruction of and recovery of PRASA. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Lwazi. The chairperson of the board and members of the board present here today, and the entire management of PRASA. And also want to thank the media for responding to our invitation. The purpose of why we are here today is to brief you about reconstruction and recovery of PRASA. It will be characterized by the minister's statement as well as the chairperson and the management to brief crisply about the work that has been done at PRASA. We thought that we shouldn't do this briefing in the air-conditioned offices where we operate from, is to show you practically the work that PRASA has been doing. And we thought also you've got many questions you could be having about the work that has been covered by the board since its inception, from many other reports that keep cropping up from time to time, either by ground up or any other person for that matter. As you know, that PRASA is not a private property. It's the property of the people, and we have been on the recovery journey for quite some time. And it is for that reason that I want to thank you, but I also want to apologize to you, media, because I realize that there's been miscommunication of times. Others reported 7:30 a.m. and then I was told that that is the call time for the media. Our program was destined to start at 9 a.m. this morning, and it's a long program. Where we start here, we go through all the corridors, we show you the work that we are doing, and when are these corridors, some of them going to recover, and we are going to end up at Kliptown. So we were sensitized to the point that you've got other engagements, so we start with the press conference to brief you, but we wanted to do it at the end. So we will take our time this morning with you, and then be patient with us because we had to rearrange our plans. Because our plan was that we'll go through the overseeing process we will be undertaking up until Kliptown, and then at Kliptown we'll brief you. So what will happen is that we will brief you, you will join us in the process, but as and when you feel like leaving at any given point in time, the media people are here, you'll communicate with them, so that we don't hold you back because of our own miscommunication. So for that, we want to apologize. Mr. Leonard Ramatlakane is the chairperson of the board, and he will introduce the board members who are here with him in terms of the delivery spec of what we will be talking about this morning. Thank you very much once more for joining us. This morning, we will be undertaking an oversight, like I said, inspection of the reconstruction and recovery of some of our critical commuter rail corridors. This is in line with the commitment we have made to recover a number of our corridors, which were shut down during level 5 COVID-19. The work we are doing is meant to deliver particular outcomes, which must be commuter services in the public interest and to provide long-haul passenger rail and bus services within the Republic. Similarly, PRASA has a secondary mandate to generate income from the exploitation of its assets. Since we came into office in 2019, we have been hard at work rebuilding critical capacity PRASA has lost and place it on sound footing to deliver on its mandate. When we terminated the interim board in 2019, we were under no illusion about magnitude of the task at hand. Our actions, which included the establishment of the war room and the appointment of an administrator, were always in good faith and intended to achieve a faster turnaround for PRASA. This is despite the court judgment that set aside the appointment of the administrator. We accepted the judgment and moved with speed to appoint a new board of control within the time frames laid down by the court. The shareholder compact we conducted with board shortly after the appointment was very specific on the turnaround of PRASA and its rehabilitation. The board continues with its work of providing overall leadership to the management of PRASA. The travel restrictions that were necessitated by the onset of COVID-19 pandemic worsened an already dire state of the rail agency. The unspeakable devastation of the theft and vandalism left the network bare and required of us to invest billions in its rehabilitation. Which part of that work is what we are going to showcase to you today. We therefore took a conscious decision to prioritize 10 commuter rail corridors for reconstruction and recovery this calendar year. The board will brief you how far we are and the timeframes to meet the remainder of the corridors and how many have been recovered to date. And as you will have seen, you will see in terms of this work we will be taking you through, you will realize the task at hand that the board and the management of PRASA is undertaking to recover the corridors back into functionality. Today we are conducting this oversight on the reconstruction work intended to rehabilitate our infrastructure from pairway, overhead traction, electricity substations, signaling and train stations in these corridors. We will then build on this to implement our modernization program and deploy the new trains across all our corridors. Some of the trains have already been deployed. Some of you asked a question when we reached the 100 train last week, and then they asked a pertinent question, Minister, where will these trains operate? Because the infrastructure is ravaged. I explained to you that some of the trains are already deployed and some will be deployed as we recover the corridors. So we will showcase that to you, not from theory, but practically what is happening now in terms of the work we are doing at PRASA. The progress being made means that we are firmly on track towards the realization of our target to return service to 10 priority corridors, which were announced by the President at the State of the Nation. We have shut down the 3 strategic corridors, which this one, Pinar Sport, is one of them. The board will take you through that briefly, which are the corridors in the region of Gauteng only. We don't talk about KwaZulu-Natal, we don't talk about the Western Cape. We have been in the Western Cape. You have seen the work we're doing there in terms of the central line, removing people to land packages that have been identified. And also in KwaZulu-Natal, we are affected by the floods, but there is recovery work, massive recovery work that has been undertaken. In addition to the rollout of the comprehensive security plan with boots on the ground, Equally, that work is part of the work that you ask about. What happens to security? So as we recover the line, we introduce security. And at the same time, today there will be a passing out parade of some of the trained security of PRASA. We have also brought in security in terms of insourcing. We are also bringing private companies in terms of security. The board can respond to that particular work. To protect this public investment, our collective capacity as government, civil society, and business must be brought to bear to implement creative measures in this entity. In conclusion, the reconstruction and recovery work we are inspecting today will be replicated and is replicated in all corridors, in a number of corridors in order for PRASA to replicate and surpass its best performance since its inception in 2009. This includes recovering passenger numbers, improving on-time performance and availability, as well meeting the revenue targets. So I will pause there and give over to Mr. Leonard Ramatlakane to give further details in terms of what I've presented to you, and thereafter we'll take questions that you have. For the media that is here and those who are coming to us via WhatsApp and still working from home.
Thank you very much, Minister. Media, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. With us, I have the three board members present. Mendedi standing here, Muhuba is standing there, DK, and then Matotsi. These are the board members that are here this morning. I'm going just to take you quickly through a journey that the minister has started laying out. The board was appointed on the 27th of October 2020. As the board arrived, obviously we've inherited an organization which has different labels. That has been labeled the other side as the dead organization, and of course the famous one is the minister's characterization, which we ended up borrowing as the board members, the broken organization. Broken, starting from the social compact that we signed with the minister as the board, and in terms of what are the things that are critical that we need to focus on. We signed that compact with more about 6 key areas of work. You would know that the organization had received a disclaimer from the Auditor General that there were lots of matters that were not dealt with. We set about the task of dealing with that particular aspect of dealing with all the irregularities that the AG has found. We have inherited in that 28 billion of what the AG referred to as a no explanation of that kind of expenditure. In that, we set about the team to get into that work led by the ARC, which is mandated here, to look at answering the question, what happened to 28 billion that was irregular in PRASA? That process is ongoing, but I can give you a report, Minister, to say out of the 28, 12 of the 12 billion was then assessed and found that the 12 billion has been spent appropriately. That condonation is well in good that we must go to Treasury and ask for condonation of those 12 billion, whilst the executive and management are continuing to assess and to ask the heads of the division what happened, where did you spend this particular money. So the progress there, Minister, is that the 12 billion is with Treasury, that it should now be accepted that that is the money that has been spent appropriately. We, of course, the second thing that we had to deal with as the board is the issue of merger between Crest and Interside. That merger between Crest and Interside, because both of those organizations, they deal with the development, has been completed. The board has signed off on that. It is a measure that has already taken place, is done. There was another matter that we needed to deal with in the compact, and that's a matter of divisionalization of autopacks. Autopacks is those buses that are intercity buses that we had to deal with in terms of the divisionalization, given the history of that particular bus company in terms of money. Spending money is not making sufficient, so we have to consolidate. That divisionalization has been completed as well in terms of last year. It's finalized. It is now with the DOT as well as of course, the National Treasury in terms of what must then do, what must happen in terms of PMFA. The fourth issue, and I'll go into detail later about that, has been the issue of locomotives. Now the locomotives, you would remember them as they're called toll trains. So we had to finalize this particular aspect, Stettler locomotives. Now as you know, and I'll summarize it this way, that the Fireable was liquidated, the company that was there, or Alstom as well, not Alstom, but the other one that was actually a company between locomotives contract with Fireable. That company was gone, liquidated. We had to start engaging and finding solution with a new company called Stettler, which is based in Spain. In that process, we have undertaken a visit to go and actually engage with the Stettler face-to-face around the issue of locos, because the value of those locomotives that are still standing in Spain is about 1.1 billion rand. So we have engaged with them and said to them, we want the value of money that PRASA has paid. To complete that, the PRASA has paid 2.6 billion towards the locomotives, and 13 of those locomotives were in fact dispatched to South Africa. They arrived, and of course after they arriving, there was a court case that determined that those locos were tall, were not going to go through underneath the bridge in South Africa because they are too tall. The truth is, those locomotives are not told not to go under the bridge. It is something else for another day. At the moment, the 13 locomotives in South Africa, as part of the Stettler resolution, 7 of them were auctioned. That's an auction before we arrived, and they only be able to raise 65 million. You can see from the auction, it was free for all. People just bought, and they bought with a cheap price of 7 locos at the price of 65 million rand. So that process was halted to try and find a proper way to deal with that particular, because otherwise it's throwing the money on the fire. So at the moment where we are, there's 23 locomotives that are still standing at Spain, which we have gone and seen. And the process of that is now engaging with the liquidator, who is now owner of those locomotives, engaging with liquidators, that the liquidators, there's a tripartite agreement between the liquidator, Stettler and PRASA to finalize this particular matter of the locomotives. And the finality, as we want to see it, we said to them, we want the locomotive to be back in South Africa in 6 months when we last met with them. However, the delay on that finalization of signing is that the agreement that has to be signed by this tripartite, it has to go to the High Court of Gauteng to be made a court order or order of court that it can be done. The engagement with National Treasury around the issue of whether there's a deviation has been done, and the deviation, the National Treasury has given indication that the person or the body that is now have a competency around the deviation would be the board of PRASA. So we're in that process to finalize, because before the deviation has been signed, it's part of the tripartite agreement. It goes to the judge president of the South Gauteng. It makes the order of court in order for it to be implemented as we intended to implementing those 23 locomotives to come to South Africa so that we are able to enjoy the benefit of the value that went into the purchasing of it. The fifth issue was the security that the minister mentioned already in terms of the insourcing, the 3,100 security, together with solving the other security dispute with the companies that were providing a security award body. That process at the moment is being consolidated into one dispute that are now being finalized in negotiations with the Group CEO to be able to get out of. You would remember that there was also a judgment by the Judge Hoppe in the Cape Town who said the security will work until he is satisfied that the plan that has been provided or put together by PRASA is sufficient. Those that have not met criteria in terms of vetting have not made it, but the 3,000 security has been in fact contracted on a daily basis. This issue about security has been a vexing issue because as we bring back the corridors, you need to out together that the minister has in fact championed in the beginning. So that is still ongoing. We still have to issue out more as we bring about the investigation has revealed 44 employees of PRASA that were part of disciplining all the persons that were part of that. This has been another one vexing issue for the AG, because the AG has been saying in Bloemfontein as to whether they are arguing about what they think has gone wrong. But in the Sangena contract as well, there's been a number of officials that work for PRASA who presided over that particular tender. That members of executive of PRASA, I'll give you, although I am hesitant to do this, to give you the names of all of them, because they are still going through the process. But most of them, in terms of a guilty verdict, once a guilty verdict has been issued, then we will then tell you the names. But all of them are undergoing the DC now. I mean, the others have been dismissed already. Others are in court with PRASA around the question. Others are in CCMA. And the same goes to Shifambo. The officials that were there are now under DC. Even though they delay in the DC, because with the right of people, every time the DC happens, they send a letter, the doctor certificate of depression. And therefore you can't go ahead with people that are not there because they are depressed. But this is the board commitment. We'll have to get to the bottom of those that are found guilty, be found guilty, and gone are they. You would know that during the Zondo Commission, there were also PRASA officials that went to Zondo and said that they were the friend of the commission. I can tell you that the thing that they were talking about and they're running away from the case of Shifambo, because they presided on the committees that overseen that. Even though they said they did not preside over it, we have evidence, documented evidence, that all of them have presided, were sitting there in the committee to adjudicate this fraudulent contract that both Siangena as well as Shifambo. In the terms of PRASA work, they have been suspended, facing a DC, all of them. And there are about 6 or 7 of them that are key and senior in the EXCO at the EXCO level. Hold on. You will read when we give you the document the model of the locomotives, the Afro 4000, the normal one, and you will see what we're saying, that the locomotive that is now in the country, the 6 of them that were stopped from being auctioned. Some are in the PE, others are in Beaufort West, and others are in Bloemfontein. We have decided that they should be commissioned now, even before we get into the order. Commissioning means they must be service. Look at whether all the things that they're supposed to have, that they have that. They are being commissioned now because that decision has already been taken to commission them. Those locomotives are designed to run on the 25 kV as well as 3 kV, but the 3 kV has not necessarily been given the right of way by the RSR because of the state of the repairs of the electrical wire. 3 kV wires have come down slightly, and therefore they touch on the locos when they are on the right, and therefore the RSR will give permission, because RSR, in one of the recommendation, they instructed both PRASA and Transnet to repair, to fix, to maintain 3 kV so that the cable is higher up and there's no problem of touching. So the locos, and then investigation, on the investigations that the board has in fact done, you would remember that the board has done an investigation around the staff members. The number of people that were, when we did Project Silvese, we could not find them showing up to say we are the one that are working for PRASA. So that process at the moment is now on the phase 2. Phase 2, and drilling down into deeper to find out and to engage the police to be able to check the accounts as to who are these members who were recorded as working for PRASA. However, I must say it is the number that was initially identified has gone down, because some of the people has kept coming back and saying that they were sick, they were on a sick leave, they were long on a sick leave, others they were on holiday, but they have, because we have closed the tap of money and receiving salary without showing up, they have now come back and said, this is where we are. They have been confirmed by the executive that indeed those were not necessarily fired. We are now having a report of Deputy Judge President Zondo that has a report for PRASA. The board is looking at the findings, but all of you know now that the recommendation is that there must be another specific focus commission within PRASA, because the judge wasn't happy about the outcome of this particular one. I must say that the design model of PRASA has been looked at. We did say as a board that it was top-heavy. There's a lot of debate about whether it is top-heavy or is not top-heavy. But all what we know, 17,000 workforce that PRASA has, and the model or delivery model, at the current one was too wieldy in terms of being able to deliver on a turnaround. There's too much line of people who must still sign the read form in terms of decision making. So the decision has been taken by the board that that structure, delivery structure of PRASA has already been designed and changed. All what is needed now is to finalize and submission to the minister around it so that the minister also sees the delivery model. Recently, there has been a problem of that has been picked up by the investigation that we have in PRASA around the people who are siphoning out insurance money. There's a syndicate that is running that has been picked up, and some of them has already been identified. There's a syndicate in the form of, they claim they work for PRASA, but they also claim money from insurance by basically fraudulently putting the claims together. We are on them. Some of them has already been suspended on this particular case. Capacity of PRASA to deliver. We have identified the capacity as one of the challenge the capacity of engineers and of course artisans that need to work on the recovery program. We have in fact already made a submission around the shortage of skills that we need to find, and we have in fact been talking to the minister about assisting with the kind of secondment that we can get in terms of skills, high skills, and of course capabilities. We had a challenge about the acting positions in PRASA. We already reported to Parliament that we are now on the program to fill all those vacancies of people who are acting position. We're now having a process that is supported by the board and the executive to fill all those vacancy positions so that we are able to hold everybody accountable to the work that they need to do. So that process, it is up and running with speed. It should be finalized in short term. This is also what to do with the group CEO. We have advertised. We're in the process of shortlisting so that we are able to appoint the group CEO and not wait for any other prolonged process. Now I'm going to hand over the next presentation on the practical operation to the acting group to take us through that.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Chairperson of the Board, and to the media, to the officials of the department, and also PRASA. Maybe before I dive into the details of the technical recovery, I just want to add a few things around the cleanup that we're doing within the company. The chair has spoken around the SIU secondment matters. Out of the 33, I'd like to report that 19 of those cases have been completed. And we still have got 6 cases in progress and 4 cases that are of a legal nature. So we can't get into DCs up until the legalities have been dealt with. On the proclamation side that the President made, the activities of the SIU led into referrals of DC matters, and 5 of those came to the management to deal with from a disciplinary point of view. And I can report that 4 of those individuals have been dismissed. They're out of the system, with 1 pending a decision on that. Minister, you mentioned recovery on the corridors. We've got 40 corridors in essence within PRASA, without counting in the long distance corridors that we share with Transnet. Out of those, we've chosen 10, and basically the criteria of choosing the 10 was basically following where the majority of our commuters and patronage is coming from. I want to report on the 10 that 5 of those are currently running, 3 down in the Western Cape and 2 here, which is Salisville and Mabopane. The balance thereof is these 3 that today the minister is coming to do oversight on. Is basically this one that we're standing on, which is the Pinasport line, is the Leralla line, which is the Tembisa line. The third one is the Naledi in Soweto line. Pinasport, where we're standing at the moment, this one, the substations, what you're seeing behind me here, had 3 substations that were destroyed. It used to run the new trains just before COVID. That was vandalized and taken apart. We're busy repairing that. What you see behind me is the evidence of the work of that repair. We are around 90% completion on this corridor. 3 substations, 90%. What we're waiting for is the transformers that we order from overseas. And that's where currently the delay is. And it's a common problem and a challenge across all the corridors because we get this from overseas. The overhead traction equipment, which is the HTE and lines on the other side, if we get an opportunity, we'll go and show you what's happening on that. We are around 80% completion there as well. We're looking at getting this work for this corridor complete by the end of September. And as far as the stations are concerned, this corridor has got around 16 stations, 5 of which require heavy rebuild. They were completely gutted down. So we've got contractors on site in each one of those 5 stations being repaired. If I go into the Leralla side, we're sitting around 40% completion on there. Minister, as we take you to that corridor, you're going to see the overhead equipment, traction equipment being repaired there. With the substations running a little bit behind on that, we're sitting around 40% on that one. But we're looking at October, Minister, on finishing that work on the Tembisa line. Naledi line as well, we're going to take you there, Minister, to go and see the work that we're doing on that one. The overhead traction equipment is sitting at around 70% on that one. Substation, again, we're waiting for traction transformers on that. That as well, we're targeting end of September to finish that work. That line, as it sits, it's got around 11 stations, 4 of which were gutted down, including Mayfair, Braamfontein, and Grosvenor. So those are currently, as we speak, contractors are on site repairing those as well. But over and above that, I need to mention that we're not only focusing on the 10 corridors, we're already looking at the next 10 corridors. And part of that is bringing in the connection between Pretoria and Johannesburg. And we're working on very hard on that one. So immediately after these 3 corridors that are the part of the 10 priority corridors come through, we need to connect Joburg to Pretoria to complete the trips for our commuters to travel between the 2 cities. But we're also, as a next phase, looking at connecting Vereeniging and Johannesburg as well. And there, temporarily in the interim, we're looking at introducing a diesel traction. And that's part of what we will be showing the minister. The work has started on the stations there. The work has started on the payway, trying to get that ready for interim diesel traction while we work on recovering that from a technical point of view. But we have not abandoned the modernization, Minister, as you said. We currently are out in the market for modernizing our depots so that we can then maintain and repair our trains, more especially the new trains. So Volmaten, as we speak, the market and the industry has responded. We're looking at their proposals at the moment. And Volmaten serves Gauteng. I don't want to dig and dive into the other regions, as you said, Minister. That is part of what we can talk about in KZN and in Western Cape. We've also just recently gone out to the market as well, inviting industry to respond to Braamfontein as well, because we need to serve both the Gauteng North and Gauteng South in terms of repair. So we're waiting for that, for their proposals on that one. So we're accelerating that part as well. I think I'll mention that security from an infrastructure point of view is going very well. The blueprint that we've taken to cover Mabopane, you can see it's yielding results. There's not been a single incident since we opened that line. And we're taking that blueprint across all the corridors that we're opening at the moment. But over and above that, we're also walling the critical infrastructure. So Volmaten needs to be walled. As we speak, the contractors are on site walling Braamfontein as well. And as much as it's going through modernization, it needs to be walled as well, because majority of our rolling stock, old in particular, is currently stabled at Braamfontein. Minister, I'd like to leave it there and wait for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, colleagues, for joining us this morning. Thank you very much, Minister, for the statement given on and a report given on the recovery and rebuilding of PRASA. Thank you very much to the board chair, Mr. Leonard Ramatlakane, for the board's report, and thank you very much to the acting group CEO, Dr. David Mpelo, for an operational and technical report on work that is being done to rebuild and recover the passenger rail agency. I will now, colleagues, open up for a round of questions. How we will conduct the Q&A session is that we will have 3 questions per round. If you could kindly direct your question to either the minister, the board chair, or the acting group CEO, so that they are able to jot them down and answer concisely and precisely. If you, as you're asking your question, could kindly just state your name, surname, and media organization that you are representing this morning. Thank you very much. As said, we will do three questions a round. We have a question by a gentleman here. A question by a gentleman here, a question by a gentleman over there. Thank you very much. You may go ahead.
My name is Malungelo Boy from Newsroom Africa. My questions are directed to the chairperson of the board, and perhaps the minister could also chip in. I want to understand the issue of the 28 billion rand irregular expenditure. You tried to explain it, but I was a bit confused in relation to the 12 million. Are you saying not the entire 28 billion rand was irregularly spent? Is that what you meant? But also the issue of these locomotives that are still in Spain. I remember when this story first broke, we were told that these would not fit the railway lines, or they were not meant for South Africa. What are you saying to us? Are you trying to get them to South Africa, or you're trying to get the money back? Just help us understand. And you also spoke about the issue of you'd need to go to court, and I was a bit confused by that. Why would you need to get to court to get a contract signed? I was a bit confused. Thank you.
Yes, I'm Peggy from Daily Maverick. What I want to know is, now that the recovery work is underway, do we now know how much the entire project is going to cost?
Hi, my name is Skalk. I'm a journalist from Engineering News. I'm sorry, I've got 2 questions. The first one, are these new corridors going to work on the standard gauge? Because I know Minister Mbalula said, I think 2 months ago, we're moving over to the standard gauge. And the second one, I think maybe that one's for Dr. Mpelo. The second one I wanted to ask is, longer term and part of the modernization, are we looking to manufacture any of our rolling stock locally again? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for those questions. The first one, the 28 billion. I said when the AG was doing the books, found that 28 billion was spent irregularly. Now, the task of the board was to actually go and drill down deeper into that 28 billion to find out together with management what was the 28 billion for, what project. Out of that process of actually there is a procedure that you follow in determining whether the money has been spent appropriately or not. The board process as well as the management in dealing with all of that cent by cent found that the 12 billion, the goods were delivered. In other words, if there was a doubt that the goods were not delivered, they had to go and touch the goods and to confirm that the goods has been delivered to the amount of 12 billion rand. And I did say that out of that, the work is ongoing to actually determine the balance, whether that balance is what is now necessarily what we could not determine what the money was spent for. So that's the first question that you asked. Locals in Spain. I did say in my report that the locals were paid for by PRASA. 2.6 billion rand was paid to a company in Spain who manufactured these locals. Out of those locals, 13 were delivered. Out of the 13 that were delivered, 7 were auctioned, and they could only raise 65 million rand. Right? So, and then I said, well, the process was then halted by the liquidator, because the liquidator could see that PRASA is losing money in big time here. If 7 locals will only bring you 65 million rand, that means, see, mahala, those who are buying them, and they are running them. All those locals that has been auctioned, they are running in the country, in SADC. They don't break bridges. Bridges are still standing. They go under those bridges. These logos that are here, South Africa, that's 6 of them, were running. They did not even knock one bridge down, a bridge overhead. So, and I did say to you that there has been lots of talk about the locals are not meant for South African rail, and therefore they should not be deployed. The engineering work and the RSR work, RSR has never declared those locals that they cannot work in South Africa. However, there's a language, a lingo, that is going around, the shorthand, that these locals are too tall. When we get them all here, we will have an open invitation to the media to get onto this logo if he's going to Cape Town, to ride with them and write down every bridge that was knocked down. As you'll see, when we get to Cape Town, we will then say how many bridges were knocked down by these locals. That is, in fact, that's what we're going to do. We made a promise, we will fulfill it. Stettler and why? The locals already is a value to PRASA. It will be foolish for the board to say we don't want the locals. You lose the locals and you lose 1.1 billion rand, South African money. So business sense, engaging with the business of the PRASA and running the trains, a long distance train, we came to that basically we must bring them back. Now, why must they go to court? Why must there be a court case? Because the contract was set aside. It remained invalid until it's validated through this tripartite agreement where Stettler, Liquidator, PRASA are then going to court. They make it a court order. So that's only when it is going to be validated. Otherwise, the question is going to be, how do you take the locals without having had any confirmation from court? It's illegal. So that's why we had to take this route. There was another question that's
So maybe to add to what the chairperson has said on the locals, they ran in this environment at some point. They ran in this environment at some point. To dig a little bit deeper onto the technical level, it's the height, and we're talking around a difference of around 150 mils basically. And the concern at a technical level is that because they are diesel locos, are the fumes that they emit out of that going to impact it's not the environment, we run diesel across in South Africa. It's more the OHTE, the equipment, overhead technical traction equipment. That's basically the question around that. Can that be changed? Yes, they can. And that's part of what the OEM, the original equipment manufacturer has looked at. Okay, we can redirect the exhaust to face a different direction. And there was a study underway, I think it stopped with the University of Stellenbosch at some point, to look into what we need to do. Inside the loco itself, by the way, we're not talking about trains. I think we need to differentiate that. It's been reported broadly that PRASA bought toll trains. It's not trains, it's locos. We're referring to locos, which is the traction, which is what pulls the entire train. So that's what we're dealing with at the moment. There are a few other things that the RSR has asked for inside the cabin itself that we need to change as well. Are they changeable? Yes, they are changeable, and we've got a solution for that. It's now a matter of RSR saying we're happy with that. In areas where we're running those locos, Transnet, in a Transnet environment, Transnet need to be happy that we're not affecting any of their infrastructure, and that's where we require them to come to the party. The question on the cost of recovery, infrastructure budget is sitting around 2.6 billion rands to recover the infrastructure, and that excludes stations of around 1.7 billion on the stations itself. KZN is not in there because KZN has just gone through its own disaster, and I think we went out to the public talking about 2.83 billion rands to recover just the KZN infrastructure, plus preparing that for any futuristic climate impact, because our infrastructure is more than 100 years old, so we need to look into that. And things have changed as well. In areas where there have been encroachment and settlements, we've destabilized the soil, so when the rain comes the way they did, they take the soil onto the rail reserve or onto the rails as well. So we need to look at long-term solutions to cover that. The question around the standard gauge, I think the standard gauge question came out of the national rail policy as a futuristic consideration. We're currently running on narrow gauge, and we're not changing that as part of this recovery. We're continuing on that gauge. The manufacturing of the rolling stock, yes, we are manufacturing rolling stock as it is out in Danota. Our new EMUs, what we refer to as new EMUs, the Istimela Sabantu, the blue and grey trains are manufactured in South Africa, 100%. I think I've covered all the other questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will be very brief. I think the context to this, you will remember in terms of the locomotives, that there was a big brouhaha in the Republic about these trains, and it was said that PRASA had ordered toll trains. Now, the make of a train is a locomotive, which is what pulls the train, carriages. So what PRASA ordered was the locomotives to enhance its capacity in terms of its independence, because the locos that they use now, they are renting some of them from private and also Transnet. So it's part of the modernization program that people are talking about, if you understand on simpler terms. That PRASA becomes independent, they've got its own locos. And then they went on a tender, and the tender was a mess of 4 billion rand, and then the locos were ordered from Spain. And that's what our mandate we gave to the board was to say, recover those locomotives. Because once we got those locomotives, you are not going to have a problem of long distance trains that we have at the present moment. Where in which if Shosholoza Mail has got to operate, you've got to hire locomotives from Transnet, you've got to hire locomotives in the private. So it means you are enhancing the capacity. So there was a vision in terms of this organization to build internal capacity from a point of view of capital expenditure and projects. And one of those projects was the procuring of the locomotives. So our mandate we gave to the board was that go and look at this, recover, and at the same time get the locomotives. And that is what the chairperson is actually explaining here. In terms of the clarity on the locomotives that we need to understand. So those that are here in South Africa cannot operate because of the interruption, because monies have been embezzled, and all of these have been subjected to a process of investigation, which the chairperson briefly explained what has happened. That the Shifambo contract was found to be irregular. And then he was giving an update that how many people were involved in that contract, how many are suspended, others have decided to go. So the Hawks are dealing with some of those investigations, including Siangena. So I wish to pause there to explain the point about the locomotives. The locomotives are not trains in totality. They are just locomotives, as you understand them. But they've been raised, the way the matter was raised was that you've got tall train. And David, the acting CEO, is explaining how tall were they. They were indeed tall. There was a gap that he explained in terms of the tall locomotives that were actually ordered.
Thank you very much to the board chair, the acting group CEO, and the minister. I'll now like to open up for the second round of questions. As had stated prior, we'll take 3 questions per round. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. I've noted you. Malungelo, please don't bully me. Is there seemingly there's no other third hand, so we'll give it to you. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Take all that. Just take all that.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Minister, on the issue of Shifambo Rail and Siangena, have the business owners of these entities who benefited from these proceeds or these funds, have they been arrested? Because I know that the owner of Shifambo, Mr. Oswald Mashaba, did not even appear before the State Capture Commission of Inquiry. Red PRASA was a main topic of discussion at the State Capture Commission of Inquiry. Have you been able to recover these funds? Have you arrested these particular business individuals? Have you taken any of their assets to try and recover these funds? On the issue of rail, as much as you look back to the funds that may have been used inappropriately, the 24-something billion rands you've mentioned, the reality is there's no rail in the country. How far are you in implementing rail? Because South Africans don't want to hear about your historical context, how much money was lost, so and so benefited from this, when they can't commute to work, when taxi fare is high, there are no trains for them which are a cheaper model of transportation. There's none of that. How far are you in the implementation of recovering the passenger rail, particularly in provinces such as KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng, where a large density of South Africans are populated in and rely on this public service for them to commute to work and back? Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ropiwa from ENCA. A couple of questions. The acting CE spoke about acting positions that need to be filled, or was it the chair? How many vacancies exactly? And then you say it was the chair. And then you say it'll be finalized in the short term. What does the short term mean exactly? And then also you spoke about an insurance syndicate where employees are lodging fraudulent claims. What exactly does that mean? What claims are they lodging? And then also on the issue of the ghost employees, you say that the initial number has gone down. By how much? And how did it happen in the first place? And what measures have been put in place since to ensure that this doesn't happen again, or allowed to continue for as long as it did? And then there was one other one about the completed DCs or actions against employees that were implicated in some of the dodgy contract. The acting CE said 19 have been completed. When you say 19 completed, what does the word completed mean? Have they gotten written warnings? Have they been dismissed? What exactly are we talking about there? Yes, and I think that's it for now. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Oh, this way.
Hi, my name is Malungelo again. Minister, one of the things that you said when you were talking about, bringing PRASA back was also making sure that the parastatal does generate money. Does that mean you will also pass on that responsibility from commuters who use these trains? I suppose if you revitalizing the system, that means that train rides are going to be high. I just want to make sure that I understood you correctly when you're saying that part of that is also to generate money for the parastatal. Another question that I have, how many in total, in terms of the employees at PRASA, that are actually being investigated? I know you've spoken about the 33 and all of that, but in total, how many? Thank you.
Colleagues, this is the final call for questions, so if anyone else has a question, could you kindly just raise your hand?
I just want to follow up on Malungelo's last question in that the total number, but also what constitutes a fireable offense at PRASA, because the chair spoke about delays in hearings because of people putting in doctor's notes saying that they're depressed and so. But the level of malfeasance at the agency has been so bad, so one wonders what exactly would constitute a fireable offense, where the person is just let go and allowed to go through the legal processes as would be necessary.
Hi, I'm Goskona Duma from 702 Eyewitness News. So my question first and foremost has to do with the infrastructure budgets. If I heard correctly, the recovery budget was about 2.6 billion rand. Is that sufficient for recovery on the nation's railway systems? In KwaZulu-Natal, do you have a budget to address the challenges there? And just lastly, on the security that you are going to be contracting, are these permanent contracts? And is this the sufficient number to ensure safety at PRASA properties?
Thank you very much, colleagues, for those questions. I will now hand over to the acting group CEO, Mr. David Mpelo, to answer, and then followed by the board chair. Then we will have the minister closing off. Thank you very much.
To Samkelo's question around the owners of Sifambo and Siangena, I think the proclamation report is due to reach or to go to the president. But within that, there is what we refer to as referrals from SIU themselves. They either refer that to NPA or to the Hawks, and that will then follow that criminal process. So we wait for that report from SIU to the president. If I look at what happened to the Zondo Commission, it was publicized. That I'm not sure what the president's going to do, but the referrals are being acted on as we speak. As soon as they are referred to the Hawks, we've got the Hawks in the environment further investigating those based on those referrals. Those that are referred to us at an operational level, we're disciplining and acting against those. But there are items, by the way, or rather matters, that will require us to do consequence management in as much as there are criminal matters on the other side, and that process will follow as well. So somebody does not go scot-free because they've moved out of the environment when they've got a criminal case, because then the law takes its own course. How far are we with the recovery of the rail service? I mentioned that we've got 40 corridors. When lockdown level 5 was lifted, we had 18 functional corridors. We've identified the 10 because, as I said, because of the volumes of people that we carry in those corridors. 5 of those, as I said, are functional as we speak. I want to add on top of those 5 that Eastern Cape, as it is, because it's a diesel environment, we now, out of the 2 corridors, it's got 2 corridors, one in East London and the other one in Gqeberha. That's running as we speak. We fully recovered on diesel on that one. KZN, unfortunately, we were running 3 corridors out of 9. Unfortunately, when the disaster came through, we've had to stop completely because the infrastructure was completely destroyed. We're currently running 1 corridor on diesel and the other one halfway on electric, while we're recovering the others. So Kwamashu, as we speak, is running on diesel. There is an electric that moves from Durban to Merebank as part of that. But we're also looking at Pinetown, Cato Ridge, the Kelso side, and Umlazi to recover. Western Cape, the biggest there is Central Line. We promised the public that we're ready to open phase 1. We're going in phases because of the problems and the magnitude of the problems that we have on settlements within our reserve. So phase 1, which is from Cape Town through Langa to Belleville, that is coming in next week as we promised. We're working very hard on that one. In Gauteng, we closed these 3 that we were running out of diesel. But the other 2 electric ones are running, plus the Vereniging to Union, which is currently also running. So these 3 that we today doing an oversight on are the ones that we're targeting for September, October. Is that the total of 40? No, it's not. But this is the priority because of where the majority of our people take rail transport as a rail service as a transport for them. But we also already working on the phase 2, which is the next 10. But we had to look into the priority corridors based on the numbers. KZN, do we have a budget? We didn't have a budget for disaster, but we had to go and apply for money from Treasury. What Treasury has said to us is, out of the funds that you currently have, go and look at those that are not earmarked and redirect them to manage the disaster and recover the infrastructure that's there. It's not coming out of a budget because you don't budget for disaster, but we're redirecting some funds that we have into recovering that infrastructure in KZN. Malungelo, you mentioned the revenue. Minister, if I may, on your behalf, PRASA's mandate, one is to transport people, and the secondary mandate is to make revenue. So the revenue does not only come from rail transport itself. There is stations, there is property, we create revenue out of that, and we do develop and invest in property to create that revenue to fund the system. So it also cushions the ticketing that we need to charge the people, also to cushion the amount of subsidy that we will request from the fiscus as well. So the revenue we generate, we use in the system as well. The question on insurance, what type of claims? There are all sorts of claims. Others claim that they've been raped within our reserves. Others claim that they've been robbed and mugged and stabbed within our properties. Others claim that they've been pushed out of trains. Others claim that they've been stabbed or injured within either in the train or within our properties, the rail reserves. So that's the type of insurance claims that we're experiencing at the moment, including the train surfers as well. When they fall and they break their legs or they lose their limbs, they come claim as well. And some of those we're seeing a lot of fraudulent activities that are coming out of that. The ghost employees, what has that number gone down by? I think the last communication I gave on that one was that we've instituted a forensic investigation on that. I sat down with the investigators and they're promising that by the end of this month they will have the report out. I don't want to go into that in terms of those numbers because I wait for that report to come indicate exactly what is going on in there and what kind of things do we have to deal with, and also to respond to that in terms of the action that we need to take. But the last part on that, I think when I spoke to them in the last week, they were indicating that they are now analyzing the data both from the payroll and also from our SEP environment to check what is really going on. They're done with the physical verification and we're waiting for the report on that one. The 19 completed cases, when I say they're completed, I'm including dismissals, final written warnings, including those that ran away from their disciplinary cases by resigning, and others that were not found guilty as well. So that's what I mean concluded. So it's either the person is out of the system, or they've got a written warning, or they've resigned out of the system, or somebody has not been found guilty. That's basically the 19 that I'm referring to. In total, how many people or how many employees are being investigated? I can't say in total to date up until the proclamation report has come out, because it's unearthing a lot of things on its own. But in as far as the secondment is concerned, we've raised this 33 because that was the work of the SIU. But 3 focus areas that the secondment focused on. One was irregularities, and the other one is the Werkmans report, because Werkmans was appointed to do a forensic report. SIU still need to go into that. And then there are the ad hocs as well that we keep on sending to them as and when we lift malfeasance and the wrong things out. But so far, the 33 comes from irregularities. They still need to go and look into the Werkmans report and look at the numbers. So I can't give you a definite number up until that work is completed, both from a proclamation and also the other pillars of the secondment itself. What constitutes a fireable offense? Sure, that's broad, but theft, fraud, corruption, sexual harassment, they're usually in a corporate environment, all those things. But in this case, deviation from policy as well, which ends up costing us money from a state point of view or an entity point of view, is fireable as well. So we're following exactly the corporate route in terms of all the fireable things based on the Labor Relations Act.
But has anyone been fired?
Yes. I mentioned that those, out of the proclamation, there were 5 matters that were referred by the SIU. 4 people have been dismissed. In the 19 that we're talking about, people have been dismissed. Outside those, we're still dismissing and consequence managing people in that environment. 19, we've got people dismissed.
How many dismissed have
Let me just check the numbers. So out of the 19, 11 were found not guilty. There's 4 final written warnings. There is 1 resignation, and there's 1 dismissal, and there's 1 written warning at that level. 4 final written warnings. We still need to deal with the balance of the 33. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I thought the acting has covered all the questions. But however, there is a under responding to one question that was asked. I just want to give it to you. Jude, it's got to do with the locals. Now, mistake was committed by the writers. The writers means report of people that communicate. Initially, where this toll train comes from the article that was written by a journalist. And the journalist wrote the article using manual of Transnet. He said, PRASA locomotives are tall because South African standard of locos is 3.8. In other words, 3 meter 800. So PRASA 1 is 4.1. And therefore, if you put 4.1 and 3.8, it is like that. So automatically concluded that this one is tall, without taking into account what is the standard, locomotive standard that you have in the country. So, and even up to this day, that journalist has been harassing some of the PRASA officials, saying, delete all those videos that showed this locomotive of PRASA riding through the tunnel to Cape Town, because it creates a problem in terms of the authenticity of the first report that particular journalist has written. The engineers of PRASA together with the RSR, they were able to dismiss that on the basis that here is a South African standard. PRASA, there's allowance of 140 on top of the train, between the train and the wire. PRASA meets that requirement. Those locals meet that requirement. So it was actually unfortunate reporting, but of course we are not angry with the reporter. He was trying to do the best and then mess it completely. But that's all I wanted to just keep the final thing.
Thank you very much. To start with first, before I zoom into Sam Kello's question, Zondo Commission recommend a commission of inquiry. PRASA doesn't need a commission of inquiry. It needs total focus, integrated investigation and arrest of thieves. That's what it needs. You're going to have a commission of inquiry, spend billions of rands on it, you leave thieves here. Monies of the state have been embezzled here. Zondo Commission itself has got prima facie. So what we need here, we need prosecution, something like an infusion house when we're investigating PPEs. That's what we need here. Commission to do what? It's fine, we must comply with that because it's a judiciary commission. That's what we need. We'll look at that, and then the president will make up his mind in relation to recommendations to Parliament. But extra to that, you need an immediate focus so that we're able to address your question. Who is arrested? I can't address that question. I'm not a policeman. I'm not Hawks, not prosecution. These people must be arrested who have done all these wrong things here at PRASA. We don't need a press conference. We need people in orange overalls. And they must account for what they did here. And as it is explained, all these reports are there. For instance, if you take Siangena, which is topical, and the chairperson did not come out very clinical about his response to it, because there was a report that was written that PRASA board has connived with Ferreira, who's the owner of this Siangena. I don't even know him, you know, this Ferreira. But he's been making overtures trying to see me. I don't see such people, okay? I don't see such people. And he must know that wherever he is. So he met with PRASA and whoever he met with, and there was a report subsequent that the board took a decision to withdraw the case. And I was called by Popo Mlefe because he said, how does PRASA come to that conclusion? I called the chair of PRASA. I asked him, And I look at the report because Popo Molefe himself was shocked about that. And I instructed the chair, talk to Popo about this, what is happening. The chair explained to me. And it is like that. There is no resolution of this board that withdrew. If there was a resolution, it was taken in a beer hall. Because under my watch, that will never happen. The person who takes that resolution will be gone by tomorrow. Will be gone. These people are defending themselves in a court of law. And that's why the process of Siangena is protracted. We've got no business with them. The High Court has found in favor of PRASA that the contract was irregular. And we must go with that and defend. Because, and also recoup the monies of the people. Shifambo, we put it there because in Stidler, because we can't have so many locomotives going elsewhere, and then they were going to assist us as PRASA. We must recover that, and that is what the chair of the board seeks to explain in his interrogation. The point here, Samkelo, what we are showing you, it's clear you have not been following our story. SABC have been very absent. You can't say a place is a broken place and then you leave it like that. Now, everybody around here, they know, they've been here. They woke up early in the morning with me when I asked them to come to see the work we're doing, including Pinarsport, where we are. We used to run a service here of the new trains. And this place has been shut down to do what David is explaining, to recover the entire place. He doesn't speak about deadlines. You know, a manager who's afraid to commit deadlines. He's not sure of his story. Because he's supposed to tell you what they told me, that by September this service will be up and running. But he's not telling you that. Uyoyika. Likwala, because he's not sure of what he's doing. He's not sure of what he's doing. So this place, Liralla, where we are going, and then he said, Naledi committed October. October, Naledi must be back. And then Cape Town, I've been there, I'm not talking about it. Yeah, Cape Town. Cape Town start from Vanderbijl, connecting those areas to Johannesburg, and then Pretoria too. Those are major projects that we should be focusing on. That is what is called you mean business. Now, the work that we are showing you here is the work that when you came here, these places were brought down, were vandalized and all of that. The new approach that they are implementing now is similar to the one of Mabupane. This new approach in terms of what is being done here, protection of these services. So 10 corridors will be up and running before end of the year. Already Salisville, here where we are in Pretoria, and Mabupane, which take millions of people, thousands of people on a daily basis, is running, and is running on time. I was there to open it, and then everybody knows about it. So we coined this recovery and a reconstruction, because a recovery means the services were down. What are you doing to recover? Yes, the people don't want plans. We've got a plan. That is the plan we're implementing as we speak now. And that is what we are showing you this morning. So that we don't speak in the office in a press conference and tell you that we've got 10 corridors and then we are going to ask where are they? When are they going to come up? So that is why this trip today is very long. Oversight, and I'm going to see that work. And secondly, let me tell you, Samkelo, that PRASA has gone a number of challenges. This is a capital-intensive company, and it has faced a problem of procurement. Part of the mandate I gave this board was that deal with procurement, because a supply chain at PRASA was rotten to the core. That's the mandate, and they are not talking about it today, the chair. What he has done to supply chain, to change it here. Same faces, same people, old corruption going on here. Now, I've got options under my sleeve in terms of what must happen. The first one that gave me into trouble was the administrator. But my intention there was to ensure that this place is focused. Because once people arrive here, they see big money. Billions, billion, and all of that. Then they start to defocus and steal. And focus on project stealing, not on project recovery. You get what I mean? Money is passing through all the time. So our project here is a project to recover. And we are looking with Treasury also, what other measures we need to take with the board to ensure that we move with speed in terms of management. We need people here who are going to work blindly, who are not focused on billions, but focused on getting this important work that is reported here, which is very good work, going. It doesn't lapse in the hands of somebody, because somebody have just lost direction. So that is what has happened here. Even Lucky Montana was doing a marvelous job here, up until he got into those wars with Popomolife and them. And then we had the successive, CEOs and all of that. Up until to date, the board appointed the CEO, non-performance issues, and the CEO contract is gone. So we need a new CEO here. We need a CEO, which the board has reported that they are dealing with that particular matter. And really, our hopes were on the fact that we're going to move with speed with the new CEO and the new management. So there's got to be an answer in relation to supply chain, procurement issues at PRASA, and how far we have gone, Samkelo, in relation to this particular issue. So we need to get a proper answer to this particular question of supply chain at PRASA, because it's a capital-intensive company. It deals with a lot of money. So if procurement is stuck, is corrupt, supply chain, this company is not going to move. You are going to take 16 days to decide on a tender. Because Kimnik is javelin. When the tender has arrived, it has to cool off. No. That one with specs is not him, looking in the wrong direction. So the tender must go a different way. You see, this is PRASA, guys. This is a company that deals with procurement. Now, if you've got people with specs like you, Samkelo, who have been judged and all of that, you are not going to drive this company. Things that were supposed to be done in 2 weeks here are not done. You know why? Because procurement guys are busy there. Nike, no, it went in the wrong direction. No, must go backwards. When I arrived here, the minister was signing for contracts that the board must approve billion, anything above $1 billion, the minister. Oh, look, this thing is a trap. This thing is a trap. Where do I come into approving billions? First contract that was brought before me, it was fraudulent. I ask a question. If a contract can pass the board and then arrive at the minister's desk, I discover as a man who's not operational at PRASA that it is corrupt. What about the system itself? Who are the people who approved this thing? And then, no, akazanga ba ikele, because it arrived, I then push it back, right? And then I wrote to PRASA, I said, deal with those people. So corruption is not going to end with these reports. It's every day here. Corruption. It's every day here at PRASA. Actually, at PRASA, that's where hawks and everybody should be camping. Yes, they should be camping. State where there is money, exchanging hands, they should be camping here. And some of them should even be employed inside here, pretending to be working. They are looking after thieves here. You know, that's what they should be doing here. This place is open for corruption now and in the future. So our corruption measures must be intensified. Must be intensified. And I want to applaud the board, this board, about the work they've done thus far, and which must be protected and must not be derailed once again. And on our part, we are looking at intensifying this work. They've taken a decision about the CEO, whether it will take them to the graveyard or whatever, but it is a decision that has been taken, and we need a CEO here, but we also need a new organogram structure that must be finalized as quick as possible. The chair talked about the top-heavy structure. I see you're confused when I talk about organogram, Samkel. He talked about, we are busy here at PRASA. It's just that the PRASA people are not meticulous in presenting their things. They are all over the place. It's like they were caught unprepared. Our Leonard, we are one. So things must flow properly so that people can understand you. And you don't become apologetic when you explain yourself. The problem we have here in this country, we've got protest and protest because we don't explain to people problems we've got, challenges we've got, how we deal with them. There is a load shedding, we keep quiet for 2 weeks. Is our fair land. It show you am load shedding. Load shedding hits your house. It's not going to just die. You are hitting a person who's affected directly. You must explain that we've got problems. And the magnitude of these problems are this much, meaning you have examined them. At PRASA, we've got these problems. I don't run PRASA. I don't need to be here. I'm here to do the oversight that the work they tell me is being done. But PRASA, given its problems, must explain themselves every day. When have you seen them explaining themselves every day? They don't. Funeka ndibadonse ngejacket, qala ubabona bo David namhlanje. Uzawabona next time and all of that. Funeka ubadonse. PRASA is in trouble. People want trains. How far are you? When are they going to come back? It's me who must explain that.
Yeah, when are they going to come back?
The trains, I don't know where you put your ears when I was explaining it. It is said that the trains, let me remind you. 10 corridors, 5 corridors are up. Salisville is a corridor is running. Mabopane it is running. We are at Pienaarsport. It will be operational. David said it is 90%, meaning 90%, it means it's short of 10%. By September, this corridor will be running. And then you've got the one that we are at Kudusport now. We are now going to Leralla. That includes Tembisa. And then that one, he said, will also be up by September. But from there, we go to Soweto. It's Naledi. Now, if you know the Naledi corridor, when we talk about the corridor, we talk about a corridor with substations. Here in this corridor, we are told there are 16. So by September, it will be operational. There are 40 corridors of PRASA. They have prioritized those that are densely populated, like this one, meaning where there are many people commuting on daily basis. As they then prepare to get others on track, that include Vanderbijl, Kliptown, and connecting Johannesburg with Pretoria. He said that work is continuing. So the reason why we are here is to update you about these corridors. So September, October, all 10 corridors will be operational. If they are not operational, then straight. But it is not only that, but we are also showcasing you that work. Then what does that work entail? It entails the fixing of pairways. The OHTE, these things that run here, electric, right? The signal, the thing that guide the train so that it doesn't crash and all of that. All of those things are being installed in this corridor, then backed up by security. Now, security are the people who are going to guard. Security are all of those things that needs to happen, guarding people and all of that. When the train stopped at level 5, most of these trains did not have doors, they did not have windows, yellow trains. They are now being fixed, mixed with blue and gray. So September, October, these trains will be running. Already others are running. If you go to Cape Town, we've got already operational corridors. The biggest one is Central Line. So Central Line minimum service will be operational now by July. Belleville, Nyanga, Belleville will be operational. The rest depend on us moving people. They are cooperating. Human settlement is giving us a hand. Then once we close that one, the whole of Cape Town trains will be operational. Now, here's another question that ENCA, okay, not ENCA, was asked about parastatal trains, rides are high and all of that and so on. Are we intending to get that money from the people? No. The train ride and using train for passenger commuting to work is cheaper than any mode of transport. It's cheaper. So it means when you pay your ticket to ride a train that takes you to work on time, then you are injecting money into PRASA to be able to run that operation. At the present moment, nobody is buying tickets. Trains are not running. If they run, they don't run on time. And then there is no operational money that comes into the kitty of PRASA. David says that they rely also on property and all of those things that bring money into PRASA. But every day I sign for many things to get money deviated from this to that, capex from this to that. We don't have that money because our machinery here is not running properly. So we're not intending to get money from the commuters. There is enough money at PRASA for budget infrastructure. There is enough money for budget. I mean for infrastructure development and modernization. There is more than enough. Actually, when they run out of money to pay for this and that, they take our money. It's just sitting there. David is smiling on it. Hey, Ningile man. I'm joking, David. Yeah. Yeah, this includes for KZN. KZN, we are affected by floods, but we are on the recovery. But KZN also is part of this. And he explained, David, when he was speaking, how far are we with that? So like I tell you that PRASA is not meticulous in explaining things, in a chronological order. And it doesn't mean that everything we are telling you today, I'm telling you that everything is hunky-dory. It's not. We are bringing you up to speed and looking at the work that has been done. I know for a fact that some of this work will have been covered long time ago. And trains should be running here. It's just delays that are internal. Now, we're going to have a serious conversation with the board with some of the things that we want to introduce at PRASA based on Treasury recommendation. So there are train services that are running, but look, they are far from anything in terms of what is required. So we are reporting to you and the public that by September, major corridors in the country will be operational. So that is what we are basically talking about. Corruption and all other things from a governance point of view. The board must focus on those things. Siangena, Shufambo, maladministration, that has happened here. That's what the board is supposed to fix and report. We report to Parliament. What we are telling you here, Parliament is going to come and see whether what we told you here, is it true or not. So we report all the time. So if it is filled with lies, and I understand why David doesn't want to commit on time frames, because he knows that you'll be ticking. So I'm inviting you again around September to come back. If not, remind me, Minister, trains are still not running in Pienaarspruit. What is happening? So this is really the update in terms of the work. In between that, there is a lot of business going on here that requires engagement with the media in terms of work that needs to be done. So I just want to thank you and then pause there in terms of our work. So I think from here, we'll proceed to other stations and we'll end up in Soweto in terms of the work that needs to be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you very much to... No. Yeah. Thank you very much to the board chair, Mr. Leonard, sorry, I don't know where my English went. Mr. Leonard Ramatlakane, the acting group CEO, Mr. David Mpelo, and thank you very much, members of the media, this morning for joining us and braving the cold. We almost got rained upon, but you were with us throughout the morning. I'll now hand over to the capable hands of Mr. Rudzani. Murawudzi, yes.
I'm not a doctor.
Did I say? I don't know, it's coming. We will now be having an oversight that will be conducted by Rudzani Murawudzi to show us progress that is being made on the OHTEs and the substation recovery. Yeah.
Okay. Victor, I'm not the cleverest. It's much more clever than us. So you will explain. So, yeah, but okay. Good morning, colleagues, and thank you. Closer to the mic. Okay.
No, you're not addressing the press conference.
Oh.
You're showing us around.
All right. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Now I see you want to tell me.
Okay, let me take out the mic. That was here used to be a 4.5 megawatts. Now we have now increased it to 6 megawatts. This is now to deal with the future demands of the service that we want to run. On the HT yard, that's all I can say. Maybe just to save time, we'll move into the breaker room. Yes, high voltage. Okay, so the room that you are in is we call it the rectifier room. This is where you rectify voltage from AC to DC, from ESCOM is 44 kV we bring it down to 3 kV so that we can feed our train. So also this room, as you see it, all the equipment that is here is brand new. It was all vandalized, it's finished, it's completed. You have panels and switches and rectifiers and also reactor coils. So that's what we did in this room. We also strengthened on the roof. We put some metal sheet in there. Maybe I shouldn't explain much for those that are willing, they want to come and cause trouble. But we strengthened some of the...
You can see some of the new installations. So you see something new when it is covered with the plastic. So you can see.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Victor, quickly.
Yes, sir. Oh, yeah.
The change in technology. If you look at this cable, full of copper, this is what attracts people.
Yes.
We're moving away from this and lessening the amount of copper in these cables.
Yeah.
It's a lot more aluminium as compared to this old copper-based.
Yeah.
It's a deterrent. That's what we're bringing in. Less copper in the environment, more aluminium, so that we don't get discourage vandalists, actually. Yeah. All right.
Okay. So I'll also show you outside where we have actually replaced a lot of this cable. I want to show you the magnitude and of how much of this was actually here before. Okay. Okay. Colleagues, on the cable that we were just talking about, the aluminium cables that you are looking at now, all these cables, they were all underground. It was this cable. So it's a 500 mil square cable of copper. We replace it with 800 mil aluminium overhead. So everywhere where we have done this, we've seen that the theft actually stopped of this cable. So this cable used to move from here all the way to the line. You can just see how far it is, and this is where they will dig it and actually take it. So everywhere where we have replaced this, even in Mabopani, we don't experience any further vandalism. So basically that's what we try to do also with the recovery. Reduce as much copper as you can. And in the sites, I can tell you, we've reduced as much as 70% in terms of copper here. So there is no copper. There's really minimum copper in our sites at the moment. Also in the OHT, which I will explain later. Okay, so we can move into the breaker room. That's where we will conclude. Yes, sir.
This scrap metal. Somebody's going to steal it here.
No, we.
Okay. All right. Take it.
Okay. You can keep this. Okay. This is the breaker room, colleagues. This is where, after the power comes from the transformer, it's rectified, it's changed into DC, it comes into this room. From here, it then goes to the line. So how I would like to explain this is that one of these breakers, it's similar to the breaker that you have at home, the one for the geyser and the lights. One of that is actually this breaker. I wish they could just pull it out so you can see how it looks. So this is for protection. If there's a fault on the line, one of these breakers will open and to protect the line and protect the train. So we have 6 of them here, which simply means that we are feeding 6 lines on the line. You'll see on the line outside, we have lines that are going to Pretoria and the ones that are going to Peanut Sport. We also have the ones that are going to Capital Park, hence you have 6 breakers in this room. We had to rebuild this, refurbish this, the roof, and also put heat sheeting just to keep the room cool, and also put some reinforcements on the roof too as a deterrent for theft. So if you can just pull it out, I just want to show how it looks. All right, so the actual breakers is this thing here. This is where the opening and closing of the breaker happens when there is a fault, or part of what we did to accommodate new trains. We also changed the design of these breakers. These ones now can accommodate more current. The old ones that we had could take up to 3,000 volts. This can take up to 4,000 volts. This is just to accommodate the startup current of the new trains that we are using, because you can't have more power from the transformer and then you are limited here. So we also use that opportunity just to prepare the system for the future. So that's what we have done. Also reducing copper. At the back of these breakers, there's a lot of bus bars which we may not be able to see that we also replaced from copper to aluminium. Okay. All right, thank you.
This is new.
This is brand new, sir. Yes.
It looks like an engine of
All right. Thank you. I think for the buildings and the work in the substation, we are done. Thank you.
So where to now?
We can briefly go and look at the OHT work briefly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, sir. In the number of kilometers in the track. There is 16 stations in this line, and the Group C explained that 6 of them were completely vandalized. So we have 8 that were already operational. We are working on 4 at the moment. So it serves commuters that are coming from Pretoria to Mamelodi, Mamelodi Gardens, and so on. There's also Silverton for the factories, people that are going to work at the factories at Silverton. So that's this corridor that we are talking about today. Yeah.
Right. Can we just explain then where we're going to from here so that all of us are on one script about the running order for the rest of the day?